Hello everyone, I am making this video to teach everyone how to do basic fractions within 10 minutes. Now the fractions that I'm going to concentrate on are basic fractions dealing with the addition and subtraction of fractions. Now before we actually start, there's a couple of things that we need to go over first, and then we will jump right into the fractions. The first thing is this here. We know that after we add or subtract fractions, we're supposed to simplify the fractions. But one obstacle that constantly happens is we don't know what to divide by. Now, these are the three numbers that I would say that will solve 80% of the fractions that you would encounter. These numbers are 2, 3, and 5. 80% of the fractions you will encounter at the basic level can be divided by 2, 3, or 5. So let me tell you the basic characteristics of 2. If the numbers are even, it can be divided by 2. The next thing, if the number ends in 0 or 5, it can be divided by 5. So let's go back over that. If the numbers are even, it can be divided by 2. If the numbers end in 0 or 5, it could be divided by 5. Now we take a look at 3. Now with 3, basically it goes like this. If you add all of the digits together and they equal to a multiple of 3, then it could be divided by 3. So let me give you an example. Let's take the number 222. Now if you look at this number here, it doesn't look like it divides into 3, that 3 divides into it even. But let's take what I said. We're going to add all of these digits individually. 2 plus 2 plus 2. And we know that equals 6. So we ask ourselves, does 3 go into 6? Yes, it does. So we would take 3 into 222. So we would take 3 into 222. Now let me prove this to you. 3 goes into 22 7 times. 7 times 3 is 21. And 3 goes into 12 4 times. 4 times 3 is 12. So as you see here, 3 goes into 222 74 times. So 3 actually goes into this number. So let's do a recap. The first number, if the numbers are even, they can be divided by 2. If the number ends in 0 or 5, it can be divided by 5. And for 3, if you add up all the individual digits and 3 can go into that number, then 3 goes into that full number. Okay, now let's go to the fractions. Now we have these fractions. The first thing that you need to know in order to add or subtract fractions, your denominators must be the same. Now we look here at number 1. You notice our denominators are 5. So we carry over our denominator. So our denominator or bottom stays 5. Now we come to our numerator. We just added. 1 plus 3 is 4. Now 4/5 you cannot simplify 4/5, so this is our final answer. Now we go here to number 2. You look here, we look at our denominators. We have 6, so we carry over our denominator 6. Now we subtract our numerator. We have 4 minus 1, which gives us 3 over 6. Now we look here at 3 over 6. We're going to try those rules. First of all, we notice both of these are not even, so we cannot divide both of them by 2. Next, we look for 5. Both of these do not end in 0 or 5, so we cannot divide this by 5. So now we take 3. We know 3 goes into 3 and 3 goes into 6. So we would divide both of these by 3, and that would give us 1/2. And that is our final answer. Now let's come down here to these fractions that have different denominators. Now if you notice here, we have denominators of 10 and 4. So this is what we would do. To find a common denominator, we're going to multiply the denominators. We would take 10 times 4, which would give us 40. So now our new denominators are 40. Now, since our denominators have changed, that means that our numerators must change as well. So this is what we would do, and I want you to pay close attention to this. We would do cross multiplying. You would take this top number here times this bottom number here. What's 3 times 4? That would give us 12. So we would take the top times the bottom, that would give us the first number. Now we would take the bottom times the top. 10 times 1 gives us 10. Now, we have converted our fractions to have the same denominator. We carry over our denominator, which is 40, and 12 plus 10 is 22. Now, what we notice here is we have both even numbers here. So we can divide both by 2. 22 divided by 2 is 11, and then 40 divided by 2 is 20. Now, 11 and 20 has nothing else in common, so we're done. Now, let's try this again with number 4. Just like with addition, subtraction, you have to have the same denominator. So what we would do is this here. We would take 6 times 8. We'll multiply our denominators. That would give us 48. So our common denominator would be 48. Now again, since our denominators have changed, that means our numerators must change. And we would do the same thing we did with addition. We will multiply across. The top times the bottom. 5 times 8 is 40. The bottom times the top. 6 times 5 is 30. So now we would subtract. We know our denominator would stay 48 because we would carry over our denominator. And then we would subtract our numerator. 40 minus 30 is 10. Now if you notice here, we both have even numbers here. So we could divide them by 2. 10 divided by 2 is 5, and 48 divided by 2 is 24. Now 5 and 24 has nothing in common, so that would be our final answer. Now let's scroll down here to the last 2 problems. Now again, we multiply our denominators. We add 3 times 9, which is 27. So we know our new denominator is 27. So since our denominators change, that means our numerators must change. So we would cross multiply. 2 times 9 is 18. That will give us our first. And 3 times 2 is 6. That will give us our second. So now we would add them together. First you would carry over your denominator. And then we would add 18 plus 6 is 24. Now we look here at 24 and 27. The first thing we notice is they're not both even, so we know we cannot divide by 2. They both do not end with 0 or 5, so we know we cannot divide it by 5. But let's take a look at dividing it by 3. Let's take 24 and separate the digits. 2 plus 4 would give us 6. We know 3 would go on to 6, but we have to check and make sure that 3 could go on the bottom as well. So we would separate those digits and add them together. 2 plus 7 is 9. We know that 3 goes into 9. So that means we could divide both of these by 3. 24 divided by 3 is 8, and 27 divided by 3 is 9. Now 8 and 9 has nothing in common, so we're done. Now we come here to number 6. Now you notice we have larger numbers here. So we still will multiply our denominators. We would take 15 times 9. 9 times 5 is 45. 9 times 1 is 9, plus 4 is 13. So our new common denominator would be 135. Now we want to do our numerators here. So we will cross multiply. 10 times 9 is 90, and 15 times 2 is 30. Remember, the top times the bottom give you the first, the bottom times the top give you the second. Now we subtract. We carry over our denominator, which is 135, and 90 minus 30 is 60. Now if you notice here, this ends in 0 and this ends in 5. So that lets us know that we can divide both of these by 5. Now 60 divided by 5 is 12, and 135 divided by 5 will give us 27. Now if we look here, we look again, both of these are not even, both of them do not end with 0 or 5, So let's try 3. So we could go off to the side here with the 1 and 2. We know 1 plus 2 is 3. And then with the 2 and 7, we'll take 2 plus 7 is 9. We know 3 can go into both of these. So we will divide both by 3. 12 divided by 3 is 4. And finally, 27 divided by 3 is 9. And 4 and 9 has nothing in common. And we're done. Please, I will ask you all this. If this was helpful to you, please leave me comments on my Facebook page. Thank you.